Hi, I'm James Valentine. I'm one of 3150's team members, black belt under Gracie in Berkeley, California. Today assisting me on the technique demonstration is going to be Valentine. He's a blue belt here, and we're going to go over one of the basic things you probably all learned on day one, a lapel cross choke from the guard position. Okay? Alright, so let's get this set up. Alright, so when I'm in closed guard, it's important to remember that I always want to make sure that my hips are close to the opponent's hips, okay? When my hips are far away from him, he can move around, but he's moving independently of my body. It makes it very easy for him to do the things he wants to do. By contrast, when I get my hips in deep, when he starts moving around, he's got to take me with him. Not only does that make him carry my weight and slow down his movements, but it also makes him more tired. It also allows me to feel what he's doing next, okay? So, we all learned the basic cross choke pretty much on the first day, but there are details that some people may not be aware of, or alternately haven't done in a while, and we want to make sure we review them. In the cross choke, the trick is all in the setup. If I just simply try to attack my opponent's collar from down here, not only can I not reach him, but he's free to move. He's free to move. So as I reach in, he's going to be ripping off the grip. I'm trying to pull him around. It's hard. So I want to make sure I'm using my whole body against him. And what we're going to do is we're going to make our whole body work against his posture. We're going to make it difficult for him to get his posture back. We're going to make it difficult for him to move his arm in place to block. We're going to isolate his neck, and then we're going to choke him. Okay? So, first things first. We're going to have William get in a good position to start working on breaking my legs open. And I'm making sure that my hips stay nice and tight to him. Okay? So, I want to break his grip off. A lot of people like to break like this. There's nothing wrong with that. I find it difficult because I'm doing like an upright row against his wrist. And when he pushes down into me, it's hard for me to break this out. So what I like to do is lift my hips up, slide my thumbs underneath his wrist, and make sure that my elbows are pointed down. This way when he puts pressure on me, right, he puts pressure into my hands, which go into my elbows. And if he pushes really super hard, my elbow can drop to the mat, and it forms a frame. Okay? So, I lift my hips up and in, I slide my thumbs underneath, I drop my hips and push up at the same time. See how his grip breaks? Now, I'm going to be pulling him forward with my knees, and instead of pulling this across or feeding it up here, I'm going to punch this hand to his hip and my hip. Okay? So we're going to pull forward and punch it in place. Now, if you look, even though my hand here is free, if William starts moving around, it's difficult because my knees are pinched in. All right, I'm sitting up into him. It makes it hard for him to move. His hand goes clear into his collar, and I make sure I glue my forearm into his chest. Okay? So now, all of this is pulled forward. The hand is up into his collar. Boom. And the forearm is glued to his chest. His elbow's pinched in. I'm using my hand, but importantly, his body weight and my knees to keep his elbow from moving. Even if I were to take this hand away and he tries to move this elbow, it's hard for him. It's hard for him. Okay? Now, I'm going to lift Will up a little bit so you can see what's going on here. This hand would be on his wrist. This hand would be on his wrist. Okay? And you can see what's going on. I would push in, and this would be pulled forward over top of him. But what I want to do while he's pulled down, okay, is I want to take my hand off his wrist and rotate my 4 fingers inside his lapel, just like this. Okay? So, he would be pulled forward, my hands come off his wrist, and I've got 4 fingers inside his lapel. If I need to move his body around to make that happen, I can do it with my knees and with my forearm, but I always want to make sure that my forearm is glued to his chest, okay? Alright, so I've got this grip, and I've got my hand inside the lapel. Now, in order to get this hand deep, we're going to have to come off to the side, and I'm going to drive. You see how my forearms are still nice and tight, okay? The key advantages of the way I'm doing this with the forearm in means that he's going to have a hard time blocking it out with his hands. He's going to have a hard time blocking it out with his chin. And because my hand is on top here, and I found his lapel already, there's a path cleared to the other side of his neck, which makes it easy for me to get this hand all the way deep in his collar. Okay? If I just allow this to come out and start trying to come in here for the lapel, he can move his hands and block it out. He can move this hand and block it out. And we want to avoid that. Okay? So, we shut down his defense by keeping his body on top of his arm, and I cleared a lane for my hand at the same time. Okay? So now, I'm going to come out to the side. I'm going to use my forearm to jack him up a little bit, and I'm still burying my forearm into his chest. Boom. And I sit. See how I'm sitting and pulling in with my knees at the same time? I made just enough room for this arm to come underneath, and this forearm is buried in his chest. My fingers are touching in the back. Right? I was on my side. And now, as I'm going to close my hands, rotate them out so the blade of my forearm is in his neck, and then I'm going to come back parallel. As I come back parallel, watch, he's going to start tapping. Right away, the tap comes. The reason the tap comes is because my hands are in deep, right, and they're already up on his collar. A couple of quick things. We want our hands to be nice and deep, okay? We want our hands to be palms facing towards us when we have both hands inside the collar. If our palms are facing towards us, then the back of our forearms need to be on his chest, on his chest, on his chest. This cocks down, our wrists cock away from his body, okay? And that puts the choke in, just like that. If I'm doing this, I'm doing it wrong. It means my hands aren't deep enough, or I never really got this part down, okay? I never really got this part down. So, we've gone through this whole thing. This is a short instructional, but you can play it over and over and over again. Certainly one of the half guard passes I got, I learned simply by hitting the rewind button about 1 billion times. Hand goes underneath the wrist. My body is in tight. I lift up. I pop his hand to the sky. Boom. Right? When I drop my knees. I pop my hand to the sky. When I drop my knees, I pull him forward. I punch this to his hip. And here, the hand comes up deep into his collar. I roll it forward and pull him forward. Okay? Forearm glued to the back of his neck. I find inside of his opposite lapel. I scoot out this way, boom, perpendicular. I sit up. I make sure my knuckles touch in the back. I get good grip, right? And I adjust my hands the way that I showed you, and he taps. Full speed, it looks like this. Easy stuff. All right? Jiu-jitsu simple, but you have to do the details over and over again. Anybody can collar choke someone once their hands are that deep. Getting the hands that deep are the problem. That's why we clear the lane. That's why we block the hand off, right? And why we control the posture with our knees and our body and not with our arms. All right, that's a wrap. Thanks a ton for watching this video. 3150, James Valentine.
William
Kang, and we're here talking to you from Half Gracie, Berkeley.
Solid. That's good, dude. You be like, I can't.
Half Gracie, Berkeley.
There's another camera.